And I'm going to ask you to speak on your experiences and what you've heard about young people who, number one, have gone missing recently, but I think we're more aware of what's been happening in terms of county lines generally, because that's been happening for around 7 years, and you'll probably have a great history of that.
I just wanted to share first with all of us, something that I found out from young people just at the bottom end of last week, is that there is a challenge currently to go missing for 2 days. So, it's good for us as adults to know these things, because maybe not so much, maybe our children or young people in our care may be taking part in these challenges. But of course, to them, it's taking part in a challenge. And to us, our minds and our feeling and our emotions are raised. So I wanted to share that first. In terms of my work with young people, our ethos at ANOS is, if we try to work at changing the environment the young person lives in and is surrounded by, we feel that we have a better way of trying to help the young person. Simply because youth work has been a greatly researched thing, and it is great. But often, if you're working with that young person, but you're taking them back to dysfunctionality, it's hard for them in that time, in that dysfunction, to, be able to function properly. So we believe in working with parents and caregivers around what's going on in the home. And that's kind of like where our work with young people has been. More recently, as you know, Dean, we've had conversations. I've just seen a video with Idris. He's right, knife crime is nothing new. But I think for us, in especially when I was out on Saturday, so if I could just share, on Saturday, I was called a police lover, a coon. They asked me if I was the baby mother of the chief superintendent. And these were all from younger black men to myself. And what is interesting with that is it started off as auntie. When I approached them at first, it was auntie this and auntie that. And by the time we left, the only question I asked was, do you feel that we as a community have a kind of collaborative responsibility to call out when things go wrong? And Dean and Dominic, they came for me. Yeah. And that's when the name calling began. So for me, I think we have to have a conversation around not so much the mindset of our young, but how do they really identify? What do they see as wrong and right? Where is their values? What, not in judgment, but just honestly, what do they value? What do they think is right? What do they think is wrong? And that was very interesting. And I do like speaking to young people because they are the future.
Absolutely. Now, this is where I really want to bring Gwenton into the conversation. And his camera's gone missing because he does have a great insight into this. But what I will say at the moment is this is also what ADPAC this is the conversations that we've been having, is about a culture shift, specifically of our young men. It definitely becomes more inclusive of our young women as well. And then Peaches from Womanhood Academy reaches out yesterday and asked me about a music project, and everything falls in line because the synergy of the music project that we're putting together. So slightly different in terms of women, because as I said to her, it doesn't have to be duplicated what we do with young men. So you are the visionary that will create that project. But we do have to, number one, work as interconnected agencies, which is what the schools to industry pipeline and the public health approach is all about. And Dominic, you become a part of that, because a lot of what you're doing is capturing data so that we have a greater understanding of the point which our young people are going missing. We understand where they've been found in those debriefs. We understand how many of the families there are. And we start to create a mapping exercise across London, and that builds out into a mapping exercise across the UK.
But Dean, I have some very specific viewpoints, so I guess philosophies that I did some last 6 months. I was working partnership for Young Life 7 months now, and we recently released a report, and there's two telling things that came out of that report. And this is not, even though the report goes into breakdown in demographics, this summary isn't a breakdown in demographics. 83.8% of the young people we surveyed believe there's systematic racism in the police, but 88% of young people support Black Lives Matter. And then you have the mental health piece. So young Londoners are facing a mental health crisis, with a third of them reporting well-being scores that indicate depression, and 75% are indicating poor well-being. And I think, at least for me, the statistics, and Donna mentioned about getting called names with coon and different stuff. One thing I've noticed with this, and I think something I lean to as an individual, and I think both of you lean to as an individual and individuals, is I am not trying to integrate everything. So I believe there's a necessity for us to have our own communities and our own systems that can cater for some. Obviously, they can't cater for everything, but we need those so people can choose. And I think historically, when I look at historically of movements in Black communities, a lot of them have fought for integration.
Absolutely.
And there was a few that kind of fought for separation. But I think fighting for the choice for the individual to choose whether they can have a great integrated community or a great separated community is, at least to me, the goal.
And here's the thing. I think you've touched on the white elephant in the room. It's not necessarily that it is integration or separation, but if we are organized as a community, we create parity because we have our own vehicles. And this is why the minute that I see anybody put their head above the parapet, I'll reach out to them to bring them into our inclusive system, because what they understand is that there is a buffer between the traditional agencies and us that is culturally competent. But when people have an understanding that there is a framework that brings the four wheels of the truck together, because if you push four wheels, they're going different directions, but the axle brings them together to travel in one direction to reach one destination. And if you think about the beneficiaries being the passengers in the vehicle, then they understand that they are to be protected, and that is the role of the agency.